Thank you so much for joining us on to hear us talk about care and how you can use the care registry as a recruitment source for your own research studies. We do have a packed agenda, and we also want to make sure we save time for everyone here to ask questions if they have any questions. So why don't we get started? Next slide, please. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Vanta Park, and I am a professor at UCSF in the School of Nursing Department of Community Health Systems. I'm also the PI for care. And as you can see here, we have several other great speakers that will be talking with us as well. Dr. Josh Grill from UC Irvine, Dr. Janice Tsoh from UCSF School of Medicine Department of Psychiatry, Dr. Christina Miyawaki from the University of Houston. And we will also have Q&A and raffles. And so for those of you who are hopefully able to stay all the way to the end, we will have raffles and prizes. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm just going to give a very brief overview of the care registry. If you would like more details and learn more about the registry, please do visit our website. We also have several papers published about care, and that are also included on our website that you may read more about. Next slide, please. So I'm sure many of you, or if not all of you, already know this, but the care registry focuses on recruiting underrepresented Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders adults into our registry. And I just wanted to very briefly talk about how the population is the fastest growing racial group in the US, comprising nearly 8% of the population, 7.7%. There are many different subpopulations or subgroups that are Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders as well. And there are more than 100 languages and dialects. And all these different factors that you see here really contribute to the very vast diversity of our communities. And one factor that we really want to emphasize, especially when it comes to recruitment into recruiting these communities or individuals into research studies, is that there is a huge range of English proficiency in this for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. And you can see what this, just by looking at the graph, how diverse of a range this is. And this is really something integral and important to care, and something we really emphasize and focus a lot in our presentations as well, in terms of how we can improve research participation for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, is that we do need to have more both culturally and linguistically appropriate outreach resources and educational resources, so we can better recruit these individuals into our research studies. Next slide, please. And many of you already know that Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders are severely underrepresented in research. Some of you may not know that in a recent, or not so recent, maybe a couple of years now, paper that was published that looked into the NIH budget and how much they had voted to, in terms of dollars, into research studies that target Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. And what they found was that in the past 25+ years, less than 1%, and actually it's 0.17% of NIH's total budget for clinical research has gone to Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. And then one of the things that CARE focuses on a lot because of the significance of this public health issue is Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And one other statistic that I wanted to share here this morning or this afternoon for those of you in the East Coast is that less than 3% of all participants enrolled in ADRD studies at Alzheimer's disease research centers in our country identified as Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. So with these two data or points that I'm sharing right now, it's really something that I think, at least for me, I constantly remind myself about the dire statistics here you see, and how much we really need to do to improve on these statistics. Next slide, please. So with partnerships with a couple dozen plus academic and community partners who recognize these disparities in research participation, we really wanted to think about an innovative way to improve research participation. And so we came up with, or we decided to develop a recruitment research registry. And it's something that is very near and dear to many of our hearts. And we've been working super hard in the past few years, especially during the pandemic. And what we have, what our goal is to enroll 10,000 Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islander adults into this research recruitment registry. In the next several slides, you'll see, we'll share more about what the registry looks like. Next slide, please. While we have a couple dozen plus community partners and academic partners, here you see these are our core critical partners. UCSF, UC Davis, UC Irvine, ICANN, which is a Vietnamese American nonprofit organization in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the National Asian Pacific Center on Aging. Next slide, please. And this is our community advisory board, and this was our first in-person meeting that we had prior to the pandemic, and we unfortunately have not had another one quite yet, but maybe this year. Next slide, please. So just wanted to share, well, who can enroll in the registry? It's very, very simple and straightforward. Anyone who self-identifies as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and or Pacific Islander, they must be an adult. And the reason why the age criteria is 18 years and older is because we have caregivers of all generations and ages, right? They must speak and or read English, Chinese, Hindi, Korean, Vietnamese, or Samoan. And for Chinese, for the writing, it's simplified or traditional, and the spoken language include Mandarin and Cantonese. We do have a CARE 2.0 application that we submitted, and we are hopeful to add many, many other languages here. And of course, they must demonstrate an interest in participating in potential research. And participants can complete the very brief online survey, or they can call if they need help, and or they can do it in person. And they have the option of getting a $10 gift card after completing enrollment survey. Next slide, please. So what are the core components of our registry? These include sociodemographic information, health conditions such as neurological disease and related symptoms, heart disease, cancer, mood-related issues, and we have health behaviors, including smoking, physical activity, and diet. And then if it's applicable to the participants, then we also ask about their caregiving experiences. Next slide, please. So far we are very close to reaching our target. So for those of you who are here and who have helped in this, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And if you may help to continue, or for those who have not yet helped to promote the registry, we would really appreciate your help in promoting this. We hope and are eager to reach our 10,000 goal. Next slide, please. So who are our care registry participants? A majority were born outside the US. The care registry really started off as a California-based registry, and even more specifically, Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Francisco and Sacramento counties. However, as you can all imagine, once we launched, there was tremendous interest outside these California regions, and including outside California, for us to allow people from outside to enroll, from both the from community members as well as partners. So we do have people from outside our targeted areas who are part of CARE. And as I mentioned earlier, we did submit a CARE 2.0 application, and we hope to be able to strategically expand, not in just the additional languages, but also across the US. Almost 11% of our participants said they are caregivers of older adults or persons with special needs. A statistic that we are very proud of is that 81% reported that they have no prior research participation experience. So we weren't just recruiting people who already knew what research was, who've done research into this registry, but really doing the hard work, mainly through our community partners, to provide the educational outreach about why it's important to participate in research. And so we're very, very proud and happy to share that the majority of our care registry participants have reported no prior research participation. You can see the mean age here is 54, and about a third are at 65 years and older, a testament to, again, the fact that we focus a lot on aging issues across the across the lifespan. More than half reported having limited English proficiency. About 13.5% also reported having ADHD symptoms. And you can see here how we have recruited more than half of our participants in a language other than English into care. And then the diversity you see here also with the cultural groups here. And we hope to improve on more increasing representation with the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander groups that have lower percent representation in our registry. Next slide, please. So now I will hand it off to Dr. Joshua.
Thanks, Pam. So let me begin by just saying that it's great to see the continued interest in these meetings, and we're heartened by that interest. And my goal in my brief remarks is to, I hope, give people ideas around ways that the care registry could be useful to their research and the research of others at their institutions. Next slide. So I'm going to outline three main ways, again, hopefully to spark ideas and conversation about the way this registry and other registries can be valuable to investigators. I've kind of broadly categorized it into three buckets here, that you could use the registry to ask novel questions in and of itself. That might be inside the registry or recruiting from it. Certainly, we hope that people will use the registry to increase the diversity and namely the inclusivity of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in their studies. And it's possible that you could recruit novel comparison groups for the purpose of testing hypotheses through care. But I'll also alert to some caveats around those ideas. Next slides. So one potential use of the care registry for investigators is to try to answer a novel question. This would likely be a question specific to Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, but it need not be. But of course, the goal is to gain our understanding and learning about specific research issues in these populations through care. And so an investigator could design a survey that could be implemented entirely within the registry. For example, sending an email link to a REDCap survey. The questions that might be asked could speak to social determinants of health or specific subpopulations that Van nicely outlined previously. But there are a bevy of ways that whole studies could be done, if you will, with the click of a mouse within the care registry. Beyond doing a whole study, there are other great opportunities that could come from this type of exercise. You might try to collect information for needs assessments for grants or preliminary data to instruct power calculations or specific hypotheses. Next slide. These types of questions do need to be carefully crafted, and the care team stands ready to help investigators as they think through the issues and the opportunities that care presents to try to answer specific questions. Here I just offered sort of an example from the types of things that I might do in the care registry, admittedly, which a lot of my work is understanding people's attitudes toward participating in clinical trials. And so, you know, just by way of example, one might ask whether immigration status impacts willingness to participate in research. And again, a very straightforward, relatively simple survey could be administered through REDCap, letting people click a link and answer questions. You know, as with all research studies, certain caveats would come into play here. If you did it via REDCap, you might miss the people who enrolled in care through in-person activities or by telephone. And so those types of bias should always be considered when designing a study that uses the care registry. Next slide. I think the quintessential purpose of care, however, is to conduct prospective recruitment to your study of AAPI participants. Again, the main goal here is to improve the representation of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in studies, full stop. You know, we really hope that this will be a valuable tool to many. Again, hearkening back to Van's presentation, it's clear that the greatest opportunity is to those individuals who are studying aging, ADRD, and caregiving. But you know, this is really how care was built, with an eye toward helping investigators recruit more Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to participate in their study. And again, the care team stands at the ready to help you determine the best path forward for trying to recruit individuals in your local area or for remote participation, et cetera. Designing specific queries for individuals who are most likely to be eligible for your study, and then to assist in communications to try to recruit them to your study. This is really where care butters its bread, if you will. Next slide. Again, important considerations to be made include that this is a population who has enrolled in a recruitment registry. I know that registries are increasingly utilized tools throughout the field, very powerful opportunities to try to accelerate recruitment. But you know, an investigator must go into this with their eyes wide open, understanding that this is a population who was willing to enroll in a registry as compared to others in the space who might not have been willing to participate in a registry. So there might be a sample bias that comes from that. Enrolling in the registry itself could produce a sample bias. It could improve attitudes towards research, for example, and help educate people. In general, we think these are good things, but you know, reviewers of your eventual paper or your grant could recognize these caveats, and so we certainly encourage people to recognize them themselves. There are ways to address these issues using careful study design and prospective approaches to ensure that you answer your question with as little bias as possible. Next slide. So, again, important caveats that all investigators should remember. CARE is not a community-based epi cohort. So, your conclusions that you can make from something like a survey conducted within CARE will have this limitation. You cannot necessarily assume that what you learn in CARE is true of all Asian Americans or Pacific Islanders, or necessarily comparisons within populations in CARE. Nevertheless, we think that this is a tremendous opportunity to do more and to get important data from the populations that are so very well represented within the CARE registry. So this is not meant to be discouragement, far from it. We highly encourage investigators to utilize CARE, but to do so with a clear understanding of the caveats that it may produce. You could imagine studies that compare Asian Americans recruited from CARE to Hispanic Americans recruited from other registries, for example. This would bring some limitations. Is it a difference between racial and ethnic groups, or is it a difference in the experiences of two different registries? It doesn't mean that those questions aren't worth pursuing or valuable to the field. Again, only that we want you to keep these things top of mind as you, we hope, utilize this very powerful tool, which can improve the representation of this population that historically has been tremendously underrepresented. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Josh, and welcome again, everyone. My name is Janice Tsoh. I'm part of the CARE team, and by now you may want to ask us questions. Okay, so how can we really use CARE referral? What's the process? So here I would like to share with you the process of using CARE and also provide you some updates regarding referrals and all that exciting news. So next slide, please. In terms of utilizing CARE referral support, you can conceptualize this as like 5 phases. And by the way, all this information are also available on our website. So let's look into each of these 5 in detail. Thank you. So first of all, it will require you to submit a CARE referral request. So on this form, as you can see here, and you can also download on our website, basically very basic information, and this is required, obviously, is that tell us about your project information, some description, importantly, timeline, eligibility criteria, as well as your target sample size, specifically the target sample size that you like to recruit, that you like to have CARE support on your recruitment. Importantly, we also need to know about your IRB status and, particularly identifying CARE as a recruitment source. We also would like to ask about funding source and the status of funding. And certainly we welcome studies that are proposing to utilize CARE supported recruitment in the development or even conceptual stage, including application to grants as well, to grant proposal. And then the next step, once we receive your referral request form, we will have a committee review. So CARE consultation committee will review your request, and generally will also at the same time provide you with general information about CARE. And specifically, we will be looking at the study, the proposal as provided on the CARE request form in terms of the eligibility criteria and the sample size. And if needed, we also would schedule a meeting for consultation or more like on clarifications or how CARE could be helpful. And the decision will be communicated within a month. I would say from our experience, it's actually pretty fast. And And then the third process would be actually processing this request. Sometimes we may, come back to you to request additional, clarifications or update, to further, narrow down certain, for example, certain groups or certain characteristics in terms of eligibility criteria to allow us to provide a more targeted sample. So as we process, then now we go into the fourth step. So next slide, please. So the fourth step would be receiving participant contact information. And what does it include? Name, language, preference, for example, preferred contact method, and of course, IRB approval letter would be required before CARE can provide the requesting investigators any of the participant information. All right, the last step, investigator responsibilities. What we would be asking for is that investigators who receive the participant information from CARE, that they would make their initial contact within 1 month after receiving these information. Notify CARE of the outcome for every participant within 30 days of receipt. Now, certainly, we will be able to work with individual teams or investigator depending on the schedule or individual, more like the project needs as well. But it's very important for CARE to know about, how is recruitment going, particularly with our participants, and what's the process and all that. So we would like to get those information. And also, citing CARE in publications and presentations, and also providing us like a brief study description and findings or links to your publications when available for us to post on CARE's website and newsletter. Okay, next slide, please. So to summarize, the process in terms of using CARE-supported recruitment would first of all start off with downloading the CARE recruitment referral form as available on this URL there, careregistry.ucsf.edu/researchers. And then CARE team may request a consultation meeting as needed to discuss further about your proposal. And then proposals that involve substantial commitment of CARE resources we'll need to review further, but so far, all of we are able to support pretty much, all of the requests. So we'll be working with each of the individual requests. Okay, next slide, please. Now, let me update you where we are in terms of the CARE-supported recruitment requests. So far, since we started receiving our first completed request in January 2021, so as of March 7th, 2022, actually as of March 7th, 2023, we have a total of 69 requests that we received, and we have referred more than 8,200 of CARE participants to at least one of the studies, and some participants may get referred for additional studies as well. So altogether, 44 studies have received or have worked with CARE in terms of recruiting recruiting from our CARE registry enrollees. 25 of these requests have study materials or personnel support for participants in both English and at least one other Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander language. Diving in deeper a little bit, among 55 of the studies providing funding resource, you could see there is a wide distribution of funding sources, such as from NIH, from Alzheimer's Association, PCORI foundations, and also other funding resources. Among the 69 requests, you can see the research area. We have over half of those are in the Alzheimer's disease or related dementias, and also dementia caregiving studies. and also a number, about 10%, a little bit less than 10% of them are other caregiving studies. And also we have a good proportion cover other health studies. And in terms of populations, targeted populations, we have about half and half like requesting like any like AA NHPI groups. And then about half of them have specific requests of a certain, AA NHPI group. So I hope you get excited about the milestones that we've made today, but we certainly would love to hear from you, would love to get your requests and how we could collaborate and really achieve the mission of increasing AA and HPI representation in health-related research. So next, we are going to have one of our requesting investigator, Dr. Christina Miyawaki from University of Houston, to tell us more about her experience. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I think it's going to be a good segue because Josh explained what the potential is with the care registry, and then now Janice explained what the care registry is. So I'm going to, my presentation is the implementation of what this foundation is. Next, please. So my project, I'm an associate professor at the University of Houston Graduate College of Social Work. And my project is called Caregiver Provided Life Review. Next, please. So what is life review? Everybody does here and there, we reminisce our past, pleasant information. But life review is a structured activity to remember one's past in chronological order. And life review is evidence-based depression intervention for majority of them for older adults. And usually this is conducted by the healthcare clinicians, such as therapists or counselor or social workers. Please. And life review session is held either individually or in group by trained healthcare professional. And session lasts about 6 to 8 weeks in weekly session, and it's about 1 to 2 hours. But because it is held by professionals, it costs a lot. Next, please. So what we thought about, what if we can train caregivers, lay caregivers, this life review therapy, kind of therapeutic activity, can they offer this to your loved one at home? So it is not stigmatized delivery, because sometimes still seeing a therapist is viewed as a kind of stigmatized. And you can deliver this at home, so it's very convenient. And you can set your schedule with your loved one, what your availability, and then it is free. So it's very much economical. So that's what we thought this is innovative. Go ahead, please. So the eligibility criteria, we do need this by diets. So one is care recipients, who is an older adult, who is 65 and older. And because this is a depression intervention, we needed somebody who is a little bit of a low mood, not under depression, because you're not the therapist. So we are looking for somebody who is in low mood, and we wanted to try with somebody who has some memory issues. So probably like mild cognitive impairment, or probably like early stage dementia. And we do have pre and post tests. And then they are willing to participate in 6 weekly life review sessions. And another pair is the caregivers, who is a lay person and who is willing to participate in 1 hour online caregiver training. And it's pre and post intervention assessment plus post interview. And just to make sure that you're following a life review protocol. So we do have a check-in call with my research assistant, and then 6-week life review session. Next one. So this is the snapshot of recruitment activity. So this study started in August 2020, and this is up to January 2021. This is at the middle of COVID. So we contacted 140 Houston area long-term care facilities by 474 phone calls, 178 emails, and 7 Zoom meetings, but we got only 2 diets. We disseminated 2,000 flyers through Meals on Wheels, but no diets. We did the presentation at 12 local senior and community centers, and we got only 1 diet. And we registered for Alzheimer's Association trial match, and we received 243 inquiries, and we got 10 diets. And on top of that, of course, we did the word of mouth, or we participate in support groups, and we call friends in internship sites with my students. But they are, because this was during the COVID time, so everything was by remotely. Next slide, please. So why we use Care Registry? Because we didn't have any racial ethnic diversity in the current sample. We had only 1 Asian diet, 8 African American, and no Hispanic diet. And trial match, the result is respondent tended to be a little more advanced stage, so they didn't qualify for our study. And also the respondents are hit and miss. We received inquiries, so we set on an appointment, but they didn't show up and things like that. And honestly, we ran out of places to outreach. Next one, please. So this is the recruitment result of Care Registry. So we registered with the Care Registry from May 2021 until January 2023. And the total number of referrals that contacted was 287. And we received inquiries from 27 caregivers, and total of registrants screened was 20, but 8 was ineligible. So the registry, the final registrant from the Care Registry was 12 diets, and they are the ones who participating in our study, and 11 diets completed the study. So in the Care Registry, they will tell you what kind of method they would like the initial contact to be. And majority of them are email contact, and few of them ask for text message, and few of them ask for USPS mail. So we send study flyers by USPS mail. Next one, please. So the experience of using Care Registry, as Janice explained, it's very, very easy registration process. It's just one-time registration. And then I think I met once to explain a little more in detail, but it was very simple form to fill out. And also, once you request a list of care registrant, it's pretty quick turnaround time. Say if I request it today, I usually receive it by this Friday or maybe next Monday. But I knew there are several times that I really need it in rush. So I requested a rush, and then I received it within 2 days. So it was very easy, and then it was target time. So I can kind of calculate when I should be receiving or when I would expect to receive the registry. And again, once you receive the list, the instruction was easy to follow. There is even a template of email how you can send it. So we just have to use the template and then tweak here and there, cater toward your research project, and we follow. As Janice explained, that every week we follow. Say if we send the email today, we'll send the second one the next Monday, and then the third one is another following Monday. So that's the weekly email schedule, and very, very easy to follow. Next one, please. So having gone through several Care Registry, I could see characteristic of Care Registrar. All these ANAPI people who are interested in research, so all the people that we receive, they already know that if we contact, they are the one because of Care Registry. And because they are interested in participating in the study, they are very much reliable and they are committed. So we know that once they're in our study, we know that they'll complete the study. So it was very much, we can count on these people. And also, as Janice explained, that we have so much diversity in AA and IPA populations. So we receive a variety of people from AA and IPA ethnicities. And there are, in our case, majority of them was English speaking in an API, but there are others who chose a different language other than English. Next one, please. So, but I would like to report some lessons learned and some challenges. As everybody is, if we don't have any deadline, we don't act. So what we learned is that when you're sending email to registrant, we put response deadline. So say we send it today, the most likely we will receive some responses today or maybe tomorrow, or the day of the due date, or maybe a few days before the due date. So we learned that several trials, I think it's better to put some kind of due date so they have some target that they are aiming at. So that was a lesson that we learned. And also, when you hear from the registrant, we immediately respond to them. This timely manner is very important because they're expressing their interest. So we really need to catch that right there. And then once you have the communication with the registrant, we need to communicate them often so we can keep their interest, and then we can recruit and we can have them in our sample. But sometimes we have to be very careful and sensitive to cultural difference, even if within AA and IPI ethnic groups. So those are the times that we contacted a native speaker of that particular ethnic groups, and we learn basic cultural mannerism. One thing that we learned is the care registrant, they are the English speaking, they may be the second generation people, so they know how, they may be familiar with participating in the study or the participation in the study in the representative of AA and IPI. That's the concept that they may know. But the difficulty is, for example, our study was looking for diets. So the care registrant was fine, they want to participate, but they are looking for, they want to do the study with their, say, parents who may be the immigrants, so they may not be familiar with participating in a study. So that was the challenge. So I think we need to encourage non-English speaking AA and IPI to participate in the study. That's going to be the next challenge. Next one, please. Okay. But what I wanted to say is when Josh mentioned that with this care registry, I would be able to recruit many API registrants and then the diets into our study. We almost have the same number of white sample. So we are planning to compare this API group versus white group to see if there are any differences in the result. So I'm really thankful for Care Registry because without them, I don't think we are able to include AAP and IPI representatives. So I'm very thankful. Thank you. And I think I'll keep requesting more Care Registrants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. And we are so grateful that you used the registry and you had a great positive experience, sounds like, and will continue to use it. So we thank you so much for sharing with everyone your experience and really helping to increase and improve representation from our communities.